The Lovecraftian genre is all about otherworldly monsters, unseen entities, and supernatural forces that hold the capacity to drive humanity insane. Directly derived from the works of H.P. Lovecraft, they have never failed to haunt the audience and leave a permanent, horrific visual in their heads. That is why, for all of you body horror fans, here are 15 Lovecraftian films that still haunt sci-fi fans to date. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The Thing, 1982. John Carpenter's The Thing is considered a Lovecraftian cult film. When a group of American researchers stumble upon a sled dog being chased by a Norwegian helicopter, they give it refuge, not knowing that it is a shape-shifting monster. As the shapeshifter, called The Thing, takes over the Antarctic Research Center, chaos ensues. The alien starts assuming the shape of various creatures and crew members, spewing the entire station in confusion. From Norris's chest bursting open into a giant mouth, to his head detaching from his body and growing spider legs, the whole center is terrorized by the Thing. As other crew members feel trapped by the shapeshifter, one of the researchers, McReady, blows up the station after a full-blown fight with the fully transformed monster. Childs reappears, claiming to be lost in the storm pursuing the monster. The men sit by their burning station, sharing a bottle of Scotch whiskey. Either of them could be the monster, but the film ends, leaving it ambiguous. Packed with some of the most gruesome, gory body horror scenes that haunt the audience to this day, the film was praised for its chilling, inhumane features. The dubious nature of The Thing truly makes it part of the Lovecraftian side of cinema. The Dunwitch Horror, 1970. A story by the maestro himself, H.P. Lovecraft wrote The Dunwitch Horror, which follows the story of a girl named Nancy, a schoolgirl who gets hypnotized by Wilbur. Wilbur seeks the book Necronomicon to perform certain secretive rituals and uses Nancy for it by taking her back to Dunwich in an isolated house. Elizabeth, her friend, and Dr. Armitage, her professor, follow their suspicions and Nancy to Dunwich, hoping to get her to safety. Discovering more about Wilbur's past, they learn he had a twin who had apparently died upon birth. Elizabeth, however, unknowingly releases the monstrous twin from Wilbur's closet. His monstrous actions destroy the town of Dunwich, killing hundreds mercilessly, including Elizabeth herself. Armitage arrives just in time, performing counter rituals on Wilbur and his aberrant twin, destroying the Dark Rite. The film reveals Nancy's pregnancy in the end, hinting at Wilbur's demonic curse unceasing. Full of otherworldly visuals, eerie atmosphere, and haunting suspense, Lovecraft's Dunwich Horror has retained its reputation in the cosmic horror genre. The human mind is scared of what it cannot see, and the Dunwich Horror aims at all the right spots to mess with the audience's psyche. Event Horizon, 1997. A story of a spaceship gone rogue, Captain Miller's team board the rescue vessel Lewis and Clark to find Event Horizon, the starship which reappears in orbit around Neptune after being missing for 7 years. When they board the Event Horizon, they find the crew either missing or dead. Upon researching a bit further, they find a horrific, gory video of the Horizon's crew getting ripped apart mercilessly. Shortly after, the crew starts hallucinating, finding their deepest fears and spiraling into oblivion. It becomes apparent that the ship has somehow returned with a demonic entity attached to it and intends to destroy anyone who boards it. A rather disturbing watch filled with self-destruction, suicide, and emotional torment, the entity never shows itself. A Lovecraftian tale of destroying the ship that was created for good but returned with ill attached to it. Event Horizon has stuck with the audience for its gripping visuals and ambiguous ending. Building a cult of cinephiles appreciating the gore, the film doesn't fail to create a sense of uneasiness, trapping the audience in its twisted tale. Annihilation, 2018. Starring Natalie Portman and Oscar Isaac, Annihilation is about Lena, a cellular biologist who is the lone survivor of the expedition that returned from the anomalous zone called the Shimmer. Kane, Lena's husband, was the lone survivor of another expedition, but he seemed to be changed completely. As Kane is put under surveillance, Lena joins another expedition to the Shimmer to know its truth once and for all. The crew is soon pulled into an eerie ecosystem of rapid mutation and encounters monstrous plants and animals that start to take over the members one by one. Lena also comes across Kane's suicide video from earlier, where he allegedly burns himself alive as his doppelganger steps into the frame, hinting that the Kane that returned home was not the Kane she married. The only objective for Lena is to make it out alive. She kills the entity by self-immolation and returns home as the lone survivor yet again. However, when Kane and her embrace, their eyes shimmer, leaving the audience in confusion as the film ends. The film scores 88% on Rotten Tomatoes and delves deep into the Lovecraftian cosmic horror genre. The audience has always been a fan of the unknown, as the critics seem to love the visual psychedelia the film possesses. Fans of monstrous brutality? This one's for you. In the Mouth of Madness, 1994. A film that pays tribute to the works of Lovecraft. This one is the perfect film to send you into complete psychosis. This world is all about Sutter Kane, a famous horror writer whose books are known to have a dangerous effect on its readers. It makes them hallucinate, lose their grip on reality, and cause violence. So, insurance investigator Trent and editor Linda set out to find Hobbs End, a town that only exists in Kane's reality. Upon reaching it, they realize that everything in the town unfolds according to the book. Even Linda falls into Kane's madness and becomes his puppet, twisting and turning her body in ways unknown to a sane human. Trent tries his best not to fall into the trap, but cannot resist reading Kane's novel and watches himself lose grip on reality. The film turns into an ultimate psychological horror when Trent is shown sitting in the theater watching the release of the adaptation, which was Kane's book. As he laughs his soul out, we see him lose it to hysteria and become a puppet in Kane's story. Calling it clever and creepy, In the Mouth of Madness is one of the perfect examples of Lovecraftian horror. It messes with your brain and leaves you questioning your sense of reality. The Lighthouse, 2019. Starring Willem Dafoe as Thomas Wake and Robert Pattinson as Ephraim Winslow, The Lighthouse is all about isolation, paranoia, and Lovecraftian horror. Wake and Winslow are to secure a lighthouse for 4 weeks. While Winslow does hard, physical labor, Wake is indulged in storytelling and alcoholic pleasure. Wake also doesn't let him access the lantern room as it holds a mystical power. As the days pass, so does their sanity. The men are driven into their obsessions, with Winslow fixating on a carved mermaid figurine and imagining Wake as a monstrous figure. As his frustrations grow, he turns hostile and ends up burying Wake alive. He also brutally kills a seagull, which turns out to be an act of bad omen, and enters the forbidden room, which drives him to madness. As shock and hysteria take over him, he tumbles down the stairs, falling to his death and eventually being eaten by seagulls. The critics call it dangerous and dazzling, and claim to have a mesmerizing effect on the audience, congratulating Robert Eggers, best known for The Witch and his recent Academy-nominated Nosferatu. The Color Out of Space, 2019. A story by H.P. Lovecraft, it was adapted into a film in 2019. The Color Out of Space is a story of Nathan Gardner and his family who moved to New England, and their lives change when a meteorite lands up near their home, turning their lives upside down. The local hydrologist, Ward, informs them about their water being contaminated, but the Gardners drink it unknowingly, and so begins the horror that tears the family apart. Everything around them mutates, and they are all drawn into madness in their own way. While Jack, their youngest son, is fixated on unseen voices, his wife Teresa and son Benny slowly lose themselves to distortion. As the power of the color starts to take over, their eldest daughter Lavinia tries to cast a spell to stop it. Nathan, who is consumed by the alien force, is killed, and the alien entity leaves, scraping their house of any sanity. Ward, who was the unfortunate witness of the traumatic incident, barely escapes, leaving with nothing but trauma for the rest of his life. The color, being the supernatural entity, is forever unseen, making it unexplainable and even more terrifying. It is a perfect adaptation of the story as claimed by the critics. The stunning use of colors perfectly complements the horror the film brings along with it. Prince of Darkness, 1987. The second installment in John Carpenter's Apocalypse trilogy, which began with The Thing and ends with In the Mouth of Madness, Prince of Darkness creates its space by being one of the great slasher movies. The story follows a group of students pursuing quantum physics to explore a cylinder of liquid, possibly carrying the physical embodiment of Satan. As the liquid infects all the students, one by one, the students turn into zombified versions of themselves, massacring the entire place. Packed with gore, it has everything from throat-slitting to insects eating away the remains of the dead. As one of the students, Kelly becomes the portal to anti-God, while another student, Catherine, dives into the portal to stop evil. When the priest breaks the mirror, which was the only access to the other dimension, all the possessed immediately die. The survivors, including Catherine's lover, Brian, are evacuated. However, sometime after, Brian wakes up from a similar nightmare, but finds a disfigured Catherine beside him. He approaches his bedroom mirror and touches it, leaving the audience wondering if evil has truly been stopped. John Carpenter came back with a banger when horror needed him the most. A Lovecraftian-style villain, the green liquid serves as the worst enemy of all of humanity. The Void, 2016. Claimed to ring back to John Carpenter's The Thing, The Void is considered a part of the classic Lovecraftian cinema. When Sheriff Daniel Carter finds an injured man, he takes him to a small hospital where his wife Allison is a nurse. The hospital gets surrounded by knife-wielding cultists, not letting anyone leave, while inside, things go south as the patients and staff start turning into grotesque monsters. The lead physician of the hospital, Dr. Powell, a secretive mastermind who harnessed the power of dark forces to conquer death, wants to open a cosmic doorway beyond human understanding. When he sacrifices himself, he only returns as a demonic, godlike entity. As Allison and Carter fight the entity, they discover the true reason behind Powell's madness. He wanted to bring his daughter back from the dead. As we come close to the climax, Carter fights the monster, throwing it and himself into the eerie portal of the void, ultimately shutting the gateway. Allison and Carter are then seen standing together in the atmosphere of the void, which tells the audience that it might just not be over yet. A film that would be loved by classic old-school horror fans, The Void displays Lovecraftian body horror to its best. Necronomicon, 1993. Necronomicon features 3 short tales of H.P. Lovecraft, starring Jeffrey Combs as Lovecraft himself. The film starts with Lovecraft reading his own book, which was kept away in a monastery. As he goes on reading, he watches his own stories unfold before him, his horrors coming to life. In the first story, a man named Edward learns that his uncle had resurrected his wife using the Necronomicon. He performs the same ritual for his dead wife Clara, who returns as a grotesque monster as Edward is forced to confront her. The second story follows Dr. Madden, who takes part in forbidden rituals to pursue immortality. His method involves extracting his victim's spinal fluid, which leads to several gory mutations. The third story revolves around police officer Sarah and her partner Paul, who crash while chasing a suspect. Paul is dragged away, and Sarah searches for him in a warehouse, encountering strange characters and monsters. She's trapped, and her unborn baby is threatened. The story blurs reality and nightmare, with Sarah waking up in a hospital only to discover it's an illusion and she's still in the clutches of the monsters. The film concludes with Lovecraft ending up permanently affected by the horrors he has witnessed. Although he escapes the monastery, the visuals stick with him. Lovecraft, but make it triple. Necronomicon is a Lovecraft fan's dream, with 3 of his stories packed into one. If Lovecraft is your horror idol, this film is about to make your watch list a whole lot more interesting.
Their horror will be your host.
The Haunted Palace, 1963. Derived from Lovecraft's The Case of Charles Dexter Ward, The Haunted Palace follows the story of Charles Ward, who returns to Arkham to claim his ancestral home, once home to his uncle, Joseph Kerwin. Joseph was a sorcerer, but was accused of practicing dark magic and eventually was burned alive, before which he vowed to reincarnate to take revenge. As Charles spends more time at the house, he is dragged into his uncle's past, and Joseph's soul possessing him. Charles starts practicing dark magic to call upon the ancient god Yog-Sothoth and mutating the townsfolk, causing an uproar of panic. He mercilessly kills the descendants of those who hurt Joseph by driving them insane. He eventually breaks free from the curse and lights the house on fire, intending to kill all remains of his uncle and his dark magic. However, evil never truly leaves Charles, as part of Joseph's soul never leaves him. The critics seem to appreciate the acting, rating it high in the Lovecraftian genre. A story of gore and revenge, The Haunted Palace knows how to create an environment capable of haunting the audience for nights to come. Underwater, 2020. Inspired by H.P. Lovecraft's The Call of Cthulhu, the film follows some desperate deep-sea researchers meaning to escape after their research station was destroyed by a massive earthquake. Nora Price, with some other survivors, manages to pick out an escape pod to leave the station. They soon encounter eerie, underwater humanoid-like creatures which attack them, and it dawns upon them that their drilling program awakened something sinister in the sea, and it was capable of causing a calamity. Finally, they reached the Roebuck Station, where it becomes apparent that a godlike creature, resembling Cthulhu, has risen, and the attackers they met were merely its pawns. Nora has no choice but to overload the station's radar, exterminating the station of all evil and sacrificing herself in the process. Kristen Stewart was praised for her role as Nora, while the critics claimed that fans of Monstrosity wouldn't be disappointed. If you're one, Underwater 2020 might be the pick for you. The Mist, 2007. Based on Stephen King's novella, The Mist is about the duality of human nature and mob mentality. The weather changes in a small Maine town when David takes his son Billy out for some grocery shopping. As a suspicious mist flows through their town, anyone who ventures into it never comes back again, which sends the people into a spiral. The survivors scream in chaos, splitting up into factions, trying to escape the tentacle-bearing monsters that lurk in the mist in search of prey. As people go insane, David, Billy, and some other survivors take the car and drive out on the road to escape, but witness the mass destruction of humanity, watching their houses being destroyed with creatures preying on their existence. As they run out of fuel, all hope drains away in David's life as he is forced to shoot his son rather than let him fall prey to the monsters. As he shoots the bullet, he drops to the ground, and just then, the U.S. military arrives, rescuing all the survivors while David drowns in the guilt of murdering his own child. The film is infamous for its inhumane ending and cold nature. However, it showcases the true mob mentality, making human nature seem more horrifying than it actually is. When in the mood to watch the dual nature of humans, The Mist is a perfect fit. From Beyond, 1986. From Beyond is based on a short story by Lovecraft that explores sci-fi and body horror. Dr. Pretorius and his assistant Crawford have built the Resonator, which elevates the pineal gland and allows humans to comprehend other dimensions as well. One night, Crawford wakes up to find that an unseen monster has bitten Pretorius and he escapes. He is encountered by the police, who believe he killed the doctor and put him into a psychiatric ward. There, he meets Dr. Catherine, who becomes unusually fascinated by Crawford's story and convinces the authorities to let Crawford recreate the incident. However, this leads to the unleashing of Pretorius, now turned into a ruthless, shape-shifting entity blinded by power. A series of attacks ensue, and eventually, Crawford begins to mutate as well, becoming a threat. Catherine eventually overloads the Resonator, which causes it to detonate, potentially killing Pretorius. But horror is never truly over when it is a tale by Lovecraft. Dagon, 2001. Based on another tale by H.P. Lovecraft, Dagon revolves around madness from religion and gory body horror. When Paul and Barbara are stranded in a town called Imboka, they are stunned to find the odd rituals of the town. The townsfolk worship Dagon, the sea god, but in turn sacrifice humans as rituals, skinning them and transforming them into amphibian-like creatures. As Barbara is captured, Paul barely escapes and chances upon a woman named Uxia, who claims to be his true partner as he is the son of a priestess who fled from the cult. As his reality dawns on him, Paul chooses to accept his fate and assume his amphibian form, disappearing with Uxia into the abyss forever. Dagon creates an aura of manipulation and insanity as Paul starts to lose himself to the hands of Dagon and allows himself to be driven by the sea god. Another Lovecraftian tale of a twisted mind, H.P. Lovecraft truly knew what he was doing. Marvelous verdict. Lovecraft's work has always been a horror fest for the pursuers of the genre. Whether it was his work adapted in the 80s and 90s or even in today's time, it never fails to horrify the audience. Lovecraft's work has always seemed to be loved and enjoyed by gore fans, so much so that it has been turned into a legitimate genre. Truly a maestro of his craft, he will never fail to horrify you. Let us know in the comments which film has made it to your watch list. And remember, if you stumble across an unseen entity, don't go near it. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe out there. Thanks, everyone.